Stephen A. Smith has once again brutally clashed with Bronny James, and LeBron James was quick to respond. According to exclusive footage currently making the rounds on the internet, the King confronted Stephen A. Smith backstage after his latest criticisms. The footage, widely shared across all platforms, shows an intense verbal confrontation between the two NBA icons, capturing one of the hottest moments in basketball news this week. But before we dive into that, let's go back to the basics of this rivalry. Stephen A. Smith is pulling back the curtain on one of the most talked about tensions in sports media. In a new sit-down interview with Graham Bensinger, the ESPN personality opened up about his complicated history with LeBron James, suggesting the conflict went far beyond televised debate segments and hot take commentary. Now let me set the scene for you. Smith admitted on the record, "We don't like each other. The world needs to know that, but I don't talk about it anymore, because all I can do is put it to you this way, and I'll even say that I hope he's watching when I say this." He then said, "Did I think he crossed the line with the incident involving his son? Of course I think, because I don't think I did what he said I was doing. I thought that was very, very, very unfair and a low blow." Now that is a lot to unpack. Stephen A. Smith is sitting there, on camera, in a calm setting, not on first take, not yelling, not performing, and he is saying he thinks LeBron crossed the line. He is saying LeBron was unfair, and he is saying all of this while looking directly into the camera and saying he hopes LeBron is watching. That is not a throwaway comment on a debate show. That is a message. But to understand why Stephen A. said what he said, you have to go back to where this all started. The tension between Smith and the NBA superstar traces back to commentary about LeBron's son, Bronny James. During a January episode of First Take, Smith argued that Bronny should have spent his rookie season developing in the G League, suggesting he was not yet ready for the NBA, and implying his roster spot was influenced by his father's status. Now, Stephen A. has always maintained that his comments were directed at LeBron, not at Bronny. He has said that repeatedly. Stephen A. Smith maintains that he never criticized Bronny James, and anything negative he said about the situation was leveled at LeBron James. His argument was simple. LeBron was putting his son in a position to be scrutinized. Smith needled LeBron for putting his son in a situation to be scrutinized and criticized because Bronny wasn't NBA ready. And here is what Stephen A. said at the time on First Take. He said, "I am pleading with LeBron James as a father. Stop this. Stop this. We all know that Bronny James is in the NBA because of his dad." He then went further. "How are you doing him favors? We know that he's not ready yet. And I'm saying this with compassion. You know what these numbers mean. You know what it's going to do to your son, to people that are missing out on opportunities." Now let me be clear about something. At the time Bronny was drafted, the Lakers selected their superstar player's oldest son at number 55 in the 2024 draft. LeBron James Sr. and Jr. made NBA history on opening night, becoming the first father-son duo to share an NBA court together. That was a moment. That was history. But after the opening night story faded, Bronny James largely split his time between the Lakers, averaging 1.4 points, 0.4 rebounds, 0.4 assists, and 4.2 minutes in 18 games, and their G League affiliate, averaging 17.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 4.6 assists, and 30.5 minutes in 15 games. So from Stephen A.'s perspective, the numbers supported what he was saying. Bronny was not producing at the NBA level. He was producing in the G League. And Stephen A. was asking, why is LeBron pushing for his son to be on the NBA roster when the G League is clearly where he is developing? Now, whether you agree with that take or not is beside the point. The point is that Stephen A. believed he was doing commentary. He believed he was doing analysis. And he believed that what followed, the confrontation, was unfair. Because what followed changed everything. The remarks sparked backlash. And just weeks later, LeBron confronted Smith during a timeout at a Los Angeles Lakers game in March 2025. And this was not some quiet behind-the-scenes conversation. Smith was sitting courtside at Crypto.com Arena with Endeavor Chief Executive Ari Emanuel and actor Larry David during the Lakers-Knicks game when it happened. LeBron walked right up to him. That confrontation is what set off a chain of events that has lasted almost a full year. And now here we are, in February 2026, with Stephen A. still talking about it, still processing it, and now saying things he has never said before. Let me paint this picture for you because this moment became one of the most discussed incidents in sports media in recent memory. The Lakers beat the Knicks in overtime in a nationally televised game on TNT. Video surfaced on social media of James appearing to confront Smith courtside. And although we can only see James's face and the back of Smith, it looks like a tense conversation. At least the few seconds that we see. James looks like the only one really doing the talking, and after a few seconds, he walks away. Lip readers also insinuated that James wasn't talking to Smith about his more recent comments, rather criticism about his son Bronny James. Now, Stephen A. described this moment himself. Smith later described that moment publicly. recalling how the exchange unfolded courtside. He claimed, "I turn around and LeBron's right here in my face and says, 'Yo, you gotta stop talking shit about my son, Bronny. You gotta stop fucking with my son. That's my son, that's my son.'" So according to Stephen A., LeBron walked up to him in the middle of a game, in front of cameras, in front of other people, and told him to stop talking about Bronny. And according to Smith, he attempted to suggest a private conversation after the game, but he claims James declined. Now, the next day on First Take, Stephen A. framed it a certain way. He said, "That wasn't a basketball player confronting me. That was a parent. That was a father. I can't sit here and be angry or feel slighted by LeBron James in any way in that regard. By all accounts, he's obviously a wonderful family man and a wonderful father who cares very, very deeply about his son." So initially, Stephen A. was somewhat measured. He acknowledged that LeBron was acting as a father. He said he understood. At the time, Smith publicly downplayed the encounter, framing it as a father reacting defensively. Yet he later acknowledged feeling blindsided by both the timing and the optics of the confrontation. But that measured response did not last, because about 3 weeks after the courtside confrontation, LeBron went on the Pat McAfee show. And that is where things escalated to a completely different level. The latest twist came with James showing up on a different ESPN show and saying Smith is milking this for all it's worth. He said Smith is on a Taylor Swift tour run right now. LeBron added he thought Smith crossed the line between regular criticism of a player's performance and a more personal attack. LeBron was not holding back. He went on the Pat McAfee show, which airs on ESPN right after First Take, and he laid into Stephen A. He compared him to Taylor Swift, saying Stephen A. was touring around, talking about this on every single show and platform he could find. And LeBron did not stop there. According to what was reported at the time, midway through the show, LeBron went on McAfee and made his case, and then Stephen A. fired back the next day. On First Take, Smith succinctly said that LeBron James is full of it and called the 21-time All-Star a liar for comments LeBron made on the Pat McAfee show. This stems from sharp criticism Smith made in January about Bronny James continuing to see minutes with the Lakers despite struggling on the court. Stephen A. then went on a now-famous monologue on First Take. He said things that had never been said before on that platform about LeBron. He called him a liar. He accused him of being passive-aggressive. He accused him of doing things behind the scenes. And here is where things get interesting. Smith said of LeBron, "There's a lot of shady stuff that he does. And one of the things is this passive-aggressiveness and the two-facedness and smile in your face and dig you in behind the back. I happen to know that about him, which is why I don't like him and he don't like me." That was Stephen A. Smith on ESPN on First Take, calling LeBron James two-faced. That was a line that once crossed could not be uncrossed. And this is what led to everything that happened after. Stephen A. also claimed that LeBron going on Pat McAfee's show was not a coincidence. Smith said, "First of all, let's understand something to the viewing public in America and beyond. This was planned. Rich Paul was on Pat McAfee's show about 10 days earlier or whatever. Rich Paul, for everybody that knows, is the founder of Clutch Sports. He's a strategic thinker. He didn't go there by accident. You're there talking with Pat McAfee, and the next thing you know, within 2 weeks, after obviously a negotiation took place, LeBron James is on it. So Stephen A. was alleging that LeBron and his team planned the Pat McAfee appearance as a strategic move to go at him on a show that directly follows First Take. And in Stephen A.'s mind, that was not just about Bronny anymore. That was about trying to undermine him professionally. And that allegation, that LeBron tried to hurt his career, is what Stephen A. has now doubled down on in the Graham Bensinger interview. This is where the story takes a turn that most people might not have seen coming. Because in this new interview with Graham Bensinger, Stephen A. Smith did not just talk about the confrontation or the back and forth on television. In the new Sitdown interview with Graham Bensinger, the ESPN personality opened up about his complicated history with LeBron James, suggesting the conflict went far beyond televised debate segments and hot take commentary. While Stephen A. Smith stopped short of revealing specific details, he strongly implied that issues behind the scenes may have impacted his professional life, something he says he has never publicly addressed until now. Now, when Graham Bensinger asked him directly about whether LeBron tried to hurt his career, Stephen A. did not run from it. He said, "I can't talk about it, but that's exactly what I said. And I've never talked about it, and I won't, other than to say I know that to be true. And that's unfortunate." That is a statement. He is saying, on camera, not on First Take, not in a yelling match. He is saying calmly that he knows LeBron tried to damage his career, and he is choosing not to go into the details. But he is not backing away from the claim. Stephen A. Smith says he still believes LeBron James attempted to potentially hurt his career, but the veteran ESPN personality insists he has chosen growth over grudges, as he reflects on a years-long rift with one of the NBA's most powerful figures. And here's the part that really stood out. Smith said, and outside of that, it was validated when he went on Pat McAfee's show, because you went on the show that comes on after me to talk about me and to disrespect me. Tidy Whitey's on, and he did this and that, and all of this other stuff, and like, oh really? So that's what we doing. So that was validation. So in Stephen A's mind, LeBron going on the Pat McAfee show was not just LeBron being LeBron, it was a calculated move to embarrass him on his own network, on a show that airs right after his show. Smith added that his belief was reinforced when James appeared on the Pat McAfee show, a program that airs after First Take, and discussed him publicly. In Smith's view, choosing that particular platform carried symbolic weight because it created a direct programming adjacency that amplified the criticism. He characterized the move as disrespectful and suggested it validated concerns he had previously kept private. Now, it is worth noting that Smith isn't the first media member to allege LeBron attempted to ruin their career. Michelle Beadle previously claimed LeBron James attempted to get her fired from ESPN, with an apparent eye on Rachel Nichols as her replacement. So if you are someone who follows these media dynamics closely, the idea that LeBron uses his influence behind the scenes is not a new accusation. It is an accusation that has been made by others in the media before. But Stephen A is arguably the most prominent person to make this claim. And the fact that he is doing it on a sit-down interview, not on a hot take show, gives it a different weight. He also said something else that people should pay attention to. When Benzinger asked him how he got through it, Stephen A gave credit to his colleagues. Smith told Benzinger, "Well, I would tell you, there's people that helped. Charles Barkley got on me. Kenny Smith is like a brother to me, got on me. Shaq, and then guys internally, Ryan Clark, Swagoo Marcus Spears. I love those brothers, they're my brothers. And they weren't the only ones." So you have Charles Barkley, Kenny Smith, Shaquille O'Neal, Ryan Clark, and Marcus Spears all stepping in to help Stephen A process this situation. That tells you something about how much this affected him. These are not small names. These are people who know both sides of the situation. And they were all telling Stephen A to let it go, to move forward, to not let this consume him. And here is another detail that is important. Stephen A brought up his own daughters in this conversation. He said, "My daughters love LeBron. And I had to look at them and say, yeah, he is phenomenal. They ain't lying. He's one of the greatest ever." That is a father talking about having to reconcile his personal feelings about someone with the fact that his own children admire that person. That is not a take, that is a human moment. And it tells you that this situation was not just professional for Stephen A. It was personal. It affected his home life. It affected how he interacted with his own family. And yet, even with all of that, Stephen A acknowledged something that shows a level of self-awareness. He admitted, "I might have affected him in ways that other people haven't. And that might have provoked him to do whatever, I don't know." So he is saying, look, maybe I affected LeBron more than I realized. Maybe my words hit him in a way that other people's words did not. And maybe that is what provoked LeBron to do what he did. He is not excusing LeBron's behavior, but he is acknowledging that his own behavior may have played a role in getting here. Now, we have spent a lot of time on Stephen A's perspective, so let us look at LeBron's side of this. Because LeBron has his own version of events, and he has been just as clear about where he stands. When LeBron went on the Pat McAfee show back in March 2025, he did not hold back. He compared Stephen A to Taylor Swift, saying he was on a tour run, going from show to show to show, talking about the confrontation. LeBron said, "Stephen A is like on a Taylor Swift tour run right now, ripping Smith's desire to be seen anywhere and everywhere, while also having an opinion on everything." But LeBron also made it clear that in his view, Stephen A crossed a line by making his commentary personal. The key phrase LeBron used was that Stephen A got personal with it. From LeBron's perspective, Stephen A was not just analyzing basketball. He was going after his son. He was questioning LeBron's parenting. He was saying things that went beyond the court. And LeBron said something else that landed with a lot of weight. He said it was his job to protect his household and to protect all the players. He did not see this as a media feud. He saw this as a father protecting his son from someone who was, in his view, using his platform to go after a 20-year-old kid. Now, Stephen A has always rejected that characterization. He has said repeatedly that he was going after LeBron, not Bronny. But LeBron clearly did not see it that way. And when he confronted Stephen A courtside, his words, according to Stephen A's own account, were specifically about Bronny. He said, "Stop talking about his son." He did not say, "Stop talking about me." He said, "Stop talking about my son." And that is important because it tells you what LeBron's motivation was. It was not about his legacy. It was not about his basketball career. It was about Bronny. And for LeBron, Bronny is not just another player. Bronny is his son. And any father who has been in a position where someone is publicly criticizing their child, understands what that feels like. LeBron also took shots at Stephen A. on the Pat McAfee show, in ways that suggested he viewed Stephen A. as dishonest. On the source of truth, LeBron said, "But don't the truth matter? There's one person in this ordeal who's telling the truth, and it's me. I don't lie to y'all, his ass lies a lot. And there's a lot of shady stuff that he does. And one of the things is his passive aggressiveness, and the two-facedness and smile in your face and dig you in behind the back. And I happen to know that about him, which is why I don't like him." So LeBron called Stephen A. a liar. He called him passive-aggressive. He called him two-faced. Those are not basketball takes. Those are personal character assessments. And LeBron said them on a show that airs on ESPN, the same network that pays Stephen A. over $100 million. Now, after LeBron's Pat McAfee appearance, Stephen A. fired back with that famous monologue on First Take. He called LeBron a liar. He accused him of planning the whole thing. Smith then claimed to have receipts against LeBron. He said, "When I did my monologue for 18 minutes, the day after he decided to go on Pat McAfee's show, and I said what I said and meant every syllable of what I said, immediately after, I was informed that we won't be hearing more from him about me. That's what I thought, because I got receipts. I got receipts, anytime, anywhere, any place." That was Stephen A. threatening to release information about LeBron. He was saying, "I have things I could say. I have things I have not said." And the fact that LeBron went quiet after that monologue tells Stephen A. that LeBron knows what those receipts might be. And then there was the additional layer that Stephen A. brought up on the Pivot podcast. On a recent edition of the Pivot podcast, Smith was asked about his feud with LeBron James. He said, "You ever see LeBron go at a white boy? Let's call it what it is. You ever see him do that? You saw him come at me." That comment added yet another layer to this entire situation. Stephen A. was suggesting that LeBron treats certain media members differently based on their race, and that he reserves his confrontational energy for people who look like Stephen A. That was arguably the most controversial thing Stephen A. said during the entire saga, and it generated its own wave of discussion and debate that lasted weeks. But through all of this, the accusations, the counter-accusations, the personal attacks, there was one moment that stood out, and that was when Bronny himself started playing better. 2 weeks after Smith was confronted by an angry LeBron over comments about his son, Smith had taken to the airwaves to assert that he wasn't being disrespectful. But then Smith told viewers, "I might have been wrong." That was Stephen A. Smith on First Take, admitting that he may have been wrong about Bronny's readiness for the NBA. He said, "I've always believed this kid had the potential to be in the NBA, but what I saw last night, he keeps showing up playing like that. Then indeed he'll be in the league as a bona fide player sooner than later." So here we are, almost a full year later, and Stephen A. Smith has sat down with Graham Bensinger and said everything he has said. And the question is, where does this go from here? Well, according to Stephen A., it goes nowhere. In the recent episode of In Depth with Graham Bensinger, the ESPN analyst pointed out how the Akron-born crossed his line during their altercation. However, almost a year after the incident, Smith still doesn't want to mend things with the Lakers legend. Stephen A. Smith bluntly admits his relationship with LeBron James is beyond repair, insisting the Bronny James altercation crossed the line forever. But here's where it gets nuanced. Because even though Stephen A. says the relationship is done, he also said something on this interview that showed another side of how he views LeBron. Smith said, "Time heals everything. As I see his career dwindling, it's important everyone knows that I know how great he is. I know how great he has been for the game of basketball. Anybody who has been that great, people like me, have benefited, because he gives us something to talk about. He's provided a certain amount of entertainment that has made an exponential amount of lives better." And then he said, "He's provided a certain amount of entertainment that has made an exponential amount of lives better." Just because he and I have a difference doesn't mean he's not a good man. So Stephen A. is in a place where he can say, this man is one of the greatest basketball players ever. He has been great for the game. He is a good man. But also say, and we do not like each other. He crossed a line. And I believe he tried to hurt my career. Those two things can exist at the same time. And that is exactly the point Stephen A. is making. He continued by reflecting on maturity and perspective, saying, and so, again, you can have differences with people. But if you're a grown-up, if you're a man, you're able to compartmentalize and say, we might have a disagreement. We might have a beef. It doesn't mean you should look at him in a negative kind of way. Now, on LeBron's side, he has not said anything about Stephen A. in months. After the Pat McAfee interview and the back and forth that followed, LeBron has been quiet on this topic. LeBron hasn't said anything about this since it happened, or before, as far as anyone can tell. He has been focused on the Lakers, on trying to win, and on the tail end of his career. LeBron James is concerned with trying to win one more championship, figuring out the best way to get the retirement tour that he feels he deserves, and probably working behind the scenes to make sure Bronny James has a safe landing space when his time is officially up. And that is probably the biggest difference between these two right now. LeBron has moved on from the public side of this. Stephen A has not. And you can see that in the fact that Stephen A is still doing interviews about it, still making statements about it, still saying he hopes LeBron is watching. Now, the fan reaction to all of this has been mixed. Most fans commenting on the latest interview weren't supportive of Stephen A. Some fans sided with Stephen A, saying he was just doing his job. Other fans sided with LeBron, saying a father has every right to protect his son. One fan said, Stephen A. Smith finally admitted he and LeBron just don't like each other. That courtside confrontation wasn't even about Bronny. It was years of built-up tension. LeBron used his son as a shield to finally crash out on Stephen A. And honestly, I'm here for the drama. NBA media is more entertaining than the games lately. And that might be the most accurate observation of all. Because when you look at the timeline, the years of Stephen A. criticizing LeBron, the years of LeBron ignoring Stephen A., and then the explosion when Bronny became the focal point, it does look like the Bronny situation was the match that lit a fire that had been building for a long time. It is also worth noting that Stephen A. has been expanding beyond sports. He decided to expand his career into politics, hosting a show on SiriusXM Radio, covering politics and news outside of the sports world. That began in September 2025. He's also been mentioned as a potential 2028 presidential candidate, so Stephen A. is in a different place now. He is looking at his career as something bigger than First Take, bigger than ESPN, and he is framing his conflict with LeBron as just one chapter in a larger story. And what about LeBron? Well, Stephen A. had something to say about that too. On a recent episode of First Take, he said about the slam dunk contest. The person who really is the provocateur to ruin the slam dunk contest was him, LeBron. And just days before the Benzinger interview, Stephen A. said about LeBron's fashion. All that damn money LeBron and them making. You can't dress better than that? So even as Stephen A. says he has moved past the personal beef, he is still finding ways to critique LeBron publicly. Whether that is about the dunk contest, about fashion choices, or about anything else, Stephen A. always seems to find his way back to LeBron. And that is where we are. Two of the most prominent figures in sports and sports media who have made it clear they do not like each other, who have made it clear they have no relationship, and who continue to talk about each other even as they say they have moved on. It is evident that the 41-year-old and Smith will continue to have a tough time with each other. Fans, however, are eager to find out whether there's any more twists left in the tale. The relationship between LeBron James and Stephen A. Smith is done. Both of them have said that. But the conversation about that relationship is far from over. And if Stephen A. really does have those receipts he claims to have, the ones he mentioned after LeBron's Pat McAfee interview, then there may be chapters of this story that have not been written yet. For now, Stephen A. says he has chosen growth over grudges. He says he knows how great LeBron is. He says he respects the man's basketball legacy, but he also says he knows what LeBron did behind the scenes, and he says he will never forget it. That is the state of things. And if history tells us anything about these two, this is not the last time we will be talking about it.